Today we are going to be reading Blueberries for Sal, which was written by Robert McCluskey. Looking at the front cover, what do you see?
A child picking blueberries.
That's right, there's a child. What do you think the child's name might be? Can you use some context clues for that?
Probably Sal.
Sal's in the title, so it makes sense that maybe the child's name is Sal. So you also said that you saw that the child was eating blueberries. What makes you think that they're blueberries, not some other type of berry?
The title of the book says blueberries, and I feel like the child is holding some sort of fruit.
Yeah, that makes sense. You use the title, Blueberries for Sal, to back up your prediction that the child's name is Sal, and she is eating blueberries. So, can you remember the last time you ate blueberries?
No, really. Probably a couple months ago.
Do you like blueberries?
I actually do, yeah.
Let's flip to the back and look at the back cover. What do you see on the back?
A bear?
Yeah, there's a bear. What do you think the bear is doing?
Eating the blueberries.
Yes. Is that similar to what the child is doing?
Seems like it.
Right. So that is something that the child and the bear might have in common. They are both eating blueberries. So while you are reading this book, I want you to be on the lookout for anything else that the child and the bear might have in common. If you find something, you can use a sticky note to mark the page so you can use it as evidence when we're talking about it later. But before we start reading, I want to go over a new type of word, an onomatopoeia. This is a long word, so I'm going to write it out so you can see what it looks like. Onomatopoeia. An onomatopoeia is a word that sounds like the sound it makes. An example would be the word boom, like boom. It sounds like the sound it makes. And another word, or another example, is the word crunch. Can you hear the crunch? And it sort of sounds like the word crunch. Mm-hmm. Can you think of another example of an onomatopoeia?
Pitter-patter.
That's an excellent example. What sorts of things make the sound pitter-patter?
Rain?
Yes. Now in this book, there are 3 onomatopoeias that the author uses so we can hear the sound that he's describing. However, for a lot of these words, the author made them up. So we're going to have to use decoding strategies to sound them out. Here is one example. These 3 words are onomatopoeias, but they're not words that you'll find in a dictionary. They're words that the author made up. So let's use some decoding strategies to sound it out. Here is the first word. Let's look at this word one syllable at a time. The first syllable, K-U, is an open syllable, so the vowel can say its name. U, or oo in this case. But the I is between 2 consonants, or actually there's 2 on either side, but it's still closed. So it has to be short. So let's just say it's short sound. So the whole word is pronounced ku-plink. There are 2 other words that are similar. This word and this word. Can you try to sound those out using that decoding strategy?
Kuplank and kaplunk.
Great work. There is another onomatopoeia in this book, and this Can you sound this word out?
Garup.
That's a good guess. Let's isolate the syllables. And so the first one is these 3 letters. And so this one has a bossy R. So it does not let the vowel say its name. So it doesn't get to say A, instead it says A. So we have gar, gar. And then here we have another closed syllable like before. So we get doesn't get to say U. So we have gar, Can you try to sound that out?
Gar-umph.
Garumph.
Garumph.
That is another onomatopoeia. So there are quite a few more in this book because the author wanted you to be able to feel like you were there and hear the sounds as he was writing the book. So as you come along the onomatopoeias while you're reading the book, you can use this piece of paper and this pencil to write them down and keep track of them so we can go over them at the end. So the last thing we're going to do before we start reading is go over 3 more vocabulary words. The first word is hustle. Can you use context clues to figure out what it might mean?
Run.
That's a good guess. What made you think it was run?
The phrase catch up.
Right. So the sentence is, then he had to hustle along to catch up. So to have to run is a great guess. Hustle means something really similar to that. To hustle means to move really quickly. So it could mean to run. And in this case, the bear sort of looks like he's running. So that's one vocabulary word. The next one is tramping. Can you use context clues to figure out what it might mean?
Walking slowly.
What makes you think that?
The fact that she's thinking about storing up food.
Yeah. So you think that if someone's thinking something, then they might be moving
while they're
slowly.
doing something. Mm-hmm.
That's a great guess. The word tramping means to walk with heavy steps, similar to the word stomp. So it can mean that you move a little slower, but it also means that you kind of move a little heavier, like your body weighs a little more. The last word we're going to look at is partridge. Can you use the picture to figure out what it might mean?
Birds? Type of bird?
What makes you think that?
There are 3 birds in the picture, and it says a mother partridge and her children.
Right, so there's using the pictures and the context clues to figure it out. Very nice work. That is exactly what partridge means. A partridge is a type of bird. Okay, so now we're ready to start reading. But before we do, what are the 2 things that you're going to remember to do while you're reading?
Look for onomatopoeias.
And what are you going to do when you find them?
Write them down.
Write them down, right. So that's the first thing. Write down onomatopoeias when you find them. What is the other thing you're going to do?
Look for context clues.
You can use context clues if you get stuck. That's an excellent strategy to use. But the other thing you're going to want to do is use these sticky notes to find similarities between the little bear and the little Sal.
Mm-hmm.
So now you're going to read the book silently to yourself. If you get stuck, try to use a decoding strategy like context clues, as you said, to try to figure out what the word might be. If you still can't figure it out, raise your hand and I can come over and help you. I'll also be walking around and asking you to whisper read to me. While you're reading, remember to use your sticky notes to mark any similarities between the child and the bear, and the scrap paper to write down any onomatopoeias. Do you have any questions?
No.
Okay, then let's get started.
Hello, Austria. Can you whisper read this page to me? Mm-hmm. Little Sal hurried ahead and dropped the blueberry in her mother's pail. It didn't sound kaplunk because the bottom of the pail was already covered with berries. She reached down and happened so far? Well, Sal's mother and Sal decided to go blueberry picking so that they can have food for the winter. And so Sal has been following along the footsteps of her mother to get the blueberries. But meanwhile, she's also been eating a couple of them. That's silly. Okay, I'll let you get back to it. Excellent work.
So now that you've read the book, let's summarize what happened. Imagine that I haven't read the book. How would you explain the story to me? What happened first?
Well, little Sal went blueberry picking with her mother.
And then?
She sat down and got lost.
What page did that happen on?
On page number 16.
And then what happened?
Then the same thing happened to the little bear.
Oh, then what happened?
Then little Sal followed little bear's mother, and little bear followed Sal's mother.
What happened next?
Little Sal's mother saw it was little bear and walked away to find little Sal.
And what page did that happen on?
Page number 48.
Great. So there's your evidence to back up your summary. And how did it end?
So finally, little Sal and little bear's mothers found them, and they went home.
Great. That was an excellent summary of the book. You used your sticky notes to mark the similarities between little Sal and little bear. Can you tell me what two of those similarities were and what page numbers you found them on?
So on page number 16, I found that both little Sal and the little bear sat down to eat blueberries.
Really? Did both of them sit down on page 16?
Nope, it was just little Sal.
Oh, okay. So one character sat down to eat blueberries on page 16. How does that make it a similarity?
Because then on page 23, little bear sat down to eat blueberries too.
Great. So there's one similarity between the two. They both sat down to eat blueberries. What's another one?
On page 26, little Sal heard someone she thought was her mother.
Okay. And how is that a similarity to little bear?
Well, if you go to page number 34, we see that little bear heard someone that they thought was their mother.
Great. Those are two excellent examples of the similarities between little Sal and little bear. So now we're going to review the vocabulary that we learned. Do you remember from the beginning? What does the word hustle mean?
It means to walk a little fast.
And how was hustle used in this story?
So both little Sal and little bear hustled behind their mothers.
That's correct. What about the word tramping?
Tramping means to step hardly and walk.
Right. It means to move heavily. And what about the word partridge?
Partridge is a type of bird.
Right. And who were the partridges in the story?
There were 3 little birds that Mama Bear saw.
Was it Mama Bear?
Well,
Let's go back to the story.
Oh, when little bear thought that she found her mom, it was just a mother partridge and her children.
That's right. So little bear saw the partridges when she was looking for her mom. And the last thing we're going to review are onomatopoeias. What is an onomatopoeia?
Onomatopoeia is a word that sounds exactly the way it is spelled.
Not the way it's spelled, but like the way it sounds
as a word.
Yeah, so the way it sounds as a word is the way it sounds as real life. What is an example of an onomatopoeia from the book?
Kaplink.
Plink, right. And looking at the scrap paper where you kept track of the onomatopoeias that you found, what's one that we didn't go over as a group?
Caw, caw, and caw.
And what is caw?
Caw is the sound that crows make.
Exactly. So caw is another example of an onomatopoeia.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think little Sal and her mother did with all the blueberries that they picked?
I think that they stored it for the winter.
How do you think they stored them?
They put them in cans.
And what do you think they did with those?
Put it in the fridge.
What would they use their cans of blueberries for?
Jam, jellies.
Cool, and what can you put those on?
Butter, bread, and biscuits.
Excellent. Is that something you like to eat?
Yeah.
Can you draw a picture of what you think little Sal and her mother are going to do with their cans of blueberries?
Mm-hmm.
Would you like to share that with the group?
Yeah.
So what is your picture of?
So that's the jar of jam, and this is the piece of bread that you put jam on to eat.
Great work. So when we talked about onomatopoeias, kaplink, garump, caw, those are some examples of the sounds that the author wrote that the characters used in the story. But what are some onomatopoeias that you can think of that might have happened in the story, but the author didn't exactly write them down? So if we turn to this page right here, what noises do you think might be happening on this page?
The sound of the wind?
What sound do you think that would make? And how would you write that down? Woo, okay, that's another onomatopoeia that you came up, just like the author did. What about on this page? What noise do you think might be happening on this page?
The grass leaves are ruffling.
They are. And how could you write that sound down? Great. That's another example of an onomatopoeia that you came up with. Great work. So can you tell me what we learned today?
Today we learned about onomatopoeias such as kaplink and garumph.
Excellent. And those onomatopoeias are words that make the sounds that they're describing. And you made a list of those, and then we came up with some of our own, like and wrestle. What else did we do today?
We also found out the differences between Little Sal and Little Bear.
Did we look at the differences between them?
No, we looked at the similarities between Little Sal and Little Bear.
Right, we made comparisons between the two characters, such as they both like to eat blueberries, they both lost their mothers, they both ended up following the wrong mother, but they both ended up going home with their mother. I think it's interesting that even though Little Sal is a human and Little Bear is an animal, that they still have some things in common. Okay, thank you for all your hard work today.
Thank you.